Hey, another worksheet that we didn't quite hit on was worksheet number 4 from the cardiovascular system. This is just going to go over how the cardiovascular system works, some of the things that affect it, and excuse me, and just some of the things that like the renin-angiotensin system. You learned a little bit about that in the endocrine system, but it is really important as far as blood pressure in the body. We will get into that, why that is important, by the way. So the first thing, though, that we're going to go through is the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system. So the parasympathetic, a good way to think about this, so parasympathetic, para, think of paralyzed, you're not going to run, okay? And then you have your sympathetic. Your sympathetic. I don't have a memory hook for that. Just remember, parasympathetic is relaxed. So a thing about this is that your parasympathetic is responsible for rest and digest. So we're going to rest. We're going to digest our food. So usually in the cardiovascular system, when you rest and you digest your food, your heart rate is going to slow down because you're just relaxing. It's just going to kind of slow down and just take its time, and your blood vessels are going to dilate. And when your blood vessels are dilated, that's going to slow down your blood pressure. Some people, when they're old, they actually eat food, and then they just feel like falling asleep because of this function. When you eat food, your blood vessels are going to dilate in your organs, and when that happens, all the blood is there. It's not in your brain, so you're going to get really tired. Sympathetic system, this is like the one when you're like on caffeine or you're like all over the place. I think we could all use a little bit of that every once in a while. Sympathetic system is known as the fight or flight. Fight or flight. Now with the sympathetic system, this is really important because it wants us to, run away from that lion that's coming chasing after us. In the sympathetic system, usually your blood vessels are going to constrict, because when something is constricted, okay, it's going to make things move through it faster, especially when you have epinephrine in your body. So your heartbeat is going to beat faster because it is trying to push blood through your blood vessels. The reason why things constrict is because if you think about it, if your blood vessels were dilated, okay, for one, your blood pressure would be lower. So when they're dilated, that's going to decrease blood pressure. Okay? Because it's dilated and your heart doesn't have to work as hard to get all that blood through your body. When your blood vessels constrict, your blood pressure is going to go up. Right? Because there's not as much oxygen getting to your vessel. So that's why your heart starts racing. The reason why you want your blood vessels to constrict in an emergency situation is because if that lion gets to you and it starts like eating off your leg or something, your blood vessels are constricted. They're not engorged with blood. They're just constricted. They're thin. This way you don't lose as much blood when you get attacked. So that's just a little bit of a recap over what these two systems kind of do. Rest and digest. You think about digest, think about dilate. Okay, dilated. I don't know about that's all I got for you, memory hook wise. So we're gonna go through the first question in worksheet number 4 in the cardiovascular system. So, what conditions below do not stimulate the sympathetic, parasympathetic fibers of the heart? The answer to that is the rest and digest response. Physical exercise and the fight or flight response, so that both A and both D do indeed stimulate it. So physical exercise, you're physically exercising, that's going to cause some kind of fluctuations on your heart. Fight or flight response, you see something's running at you. You want that response, because then you can start preparing your body to, run or fight. The other options that are true to this, because the only false one is the rest and digest response. That doesn't really stimulate it. Body temperature does, and the concentration of various ions such as calcium and potassium. A good way to think of calcium, oh shoot, that's potassium, I'm sorry, of potassium and calcium. So your body, think of it as a machine. Okay, machines, they run on electric. Potassium and calcium are both electrolytes. They are electrolytes. So our bodies, so machines, do not function without electric. Your phone will not function if it's not charged. Same thing with the human body and electrolytes. If the electrolytes really kind of control everything in the body to begin with. But if you don't have electrolytes, I'm sorry, you shouldn't probably be existing. Baroreceptor reflexes in the cardiac control system, are in the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is in your brain. This controls the sympathetic and parasympathetic system, or parasympathetic and sympathetic effects. So this is really important because it just kind of balances, the medulla oblongata just balances everything. If you have too much sympathetic all the time, you could really damage your blood vessels. But if you have too much parasympathetic, you'd be fainting, you'd just be fainting a lot. So right there, number 3, fill in the chart comparing sympathetic and parasympathetic impulses. For the sympathetic, they're going to be the sympathetic impulses. It's going to be the accelerator nerve. So think about you put the pedal to the metal, accelerate, accelerator nerve. This nerve is going to increase heart rate. It's the cardiac control center for this is the cardio acceleratory center. I wonder why it's called that. And then it's also going to be in the SA node, the AV node, and the atrial and ventricular myocardium. So when you think about your heart, okay, your atrias are here, right? Your atriums are up here, and your heart is down, and your ventricles are down here. The myocardium, myo means muscle, so you're talking about this muscle just all around here, right? Because your heart is a muscle. Your heart controls everything in your body. When you think about the SA node or the AV node, the SA node is up here, and the AV node is a little bit more in the middle. The SA node is really important for the sympathetic system, so think of SA, sympathetic. Okay? The next one, in that next column, is the parasympathetic nerve. Right? Something you can think about, remember, parasympathetic, if you're paralyzed, you're not going to run. This is controlled by the vagus nerve. And how you can remember this is vagus, you think, you go to Vegas and you get wasted or something, and you feel so dead, because you're hungover, or you're just out of it, you just want to rest and digest, you don't really want to do a whole lot. So vagus nerve, parasympathetic system. Also, I think alcohol can paralyze you too if you drink too much. That's not good. I don't quite know why, but Anyway, but this is going to decrease heart rate. We want to decrease heart rate, right? We just want to rest and digest. This is the cardiac control center for the parasympathetic system is and the cardio inhibitory center. It's whenever you see the word inhibit, it means stop. What does the cardiac control center connect to? Well, the cardiac control center, the CCC, that's what that is, CCC, cardiac control center. You ever see that? This cardiac control center in the parasympathetic system connects to the left. So you think, I left Vegas, goodbye, left. Vegas connects to the SA. Only the left one though. So not a whole lot of control there. Usually the sympathetic system controls the SA node. Only the left vagus does in this situation. But mainly the left vagus is responsible for the AV node. Okay? The AV node, right, the SA node is the main control. He's the main operator, but sometimes, even operators want to get things done too fast. So every once in a while you need someone checking up on him. And the one checking up on the operator is the AV node. And so the SA node is the one that tells the heart, it's pacemaker of the heart. It tells the heart beat, beat, beat. The AV node kind of delays the beat and makes sure, if you think about it, why do you think it delays the beat? Your heart has to fill with blood, though the atria are dripping blood. If your heart is beating before that blood can get out, then it's not efficient. So the AV node is kind of what slows things down. Like, slow down, let the ventricles fill with blood. Like, we need to have some balance here. We just can't keep beating if there's nothing in them. So that's the AV node. It's really important. Some control centers in the cardiac cycle: baroreceptors, pressor receptors. These just detect pressure of your blood pressure. Another thing too. If you think about blood pressure, think about, whenever you think of pressure, think of a balloon. Your veins are made of balloons, right? Too much pressure and the balloon is gonna pop, right? So you don't want too much pressure in the veins. Too little pressure, and what happens when there's too little pressure is that the balloon kind of collapses, right? There's not enough pressure to keep it sustained. So we don't want our veins and arteries and things, we don't want those things collapsing on us and like closing, and we don't want that. So we need more pressure to keep them sustained, but not too much they're gonna pop. So that's what the baroreceptors, the pressor receptors, the hypothalamus in your brain, that's also what controls the cardiac cycle. So think about the hypothalamus. This regulates your emotions. So if you see something like, that's fear, that regulates your emotion. Another thing too is like when you're attracted to someone, it makes your heart rate speed up, because you're like, oh my, because you have to be, usually in the wild, males fought for their mates. So in us, that is still in us, that if you see someone attractive, usually there's some inborn sense that there could be some other threat that you need to be prepared to fight. Now, we don't do that now. We just do it because we think we get nervous or butterflies in our stomach. That we get that too, but really, I think it's because back in the day, like way back when. But anyway, that's besides the point. Vagus nerve is the other control for the cardiac center. Vagus nerve, remember the vagus, you got hungover and you're just kind of like, the rest and digest. That's the vagus nerve. Chemoreceptors control, so chemo receptors. These are receptors that detect the chemicals in your body. Chemicals in your body, such as oxygen, carbon dioxide, and the pH. Right? So if you have too much carbon dioxide, so the carbon dioxide is increased, then you don't have enough oxygen in your body. Too much, you could only have, 50-50 or 80%, 25%. But if you have like 70% carbon dioxide, I mean, that's really bad. Then your blood can only take 20% oxygen, and we don't want that. So a way these chemicals control our body in the chemoreceptors is that too little oxygen will cause your heart to speed up because it's trying to get oxygen to the rest of the body. Because remember, oxygen to the cells is like food. We need to feed our cells oxygen. Whew, like right now, trying to get it to my brain. So another thing too is the change in ion concentration. Whenever you think of the word ions, okay, if we are the machine, machines run on electric. And if machines run on electric, then we must run on electrolytes. These are also ions, such as calcium and potassium. We will get into this when we get into the renin-angiotensin system. That's when this all comes into play. Oh my, that's a lovely squiggle there. Lastly, for the sake, because we don't want this video to be too long, it won't upload if it is. Number 5, under the sympathetic stimulation, arterioles and arteries vasodilate. That is, cross out vasodilate. They actually vasoconstrict, because if you think about it, like earlier we were talking, for things to vasoconstrict, right, we want to cut off that blood supply. For one, that will increase blood pressure, because your heart is beating really fast, is more efficient to get as much oxygen as fast as possible. Another way is that it also vasoconstricts, because if it vasoconstricts and that lion bites into your leg, you're not gonna bleed as much because you have less blood there. So it's kind of like that. We're gonna continue with this in the next video.